Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up from March 5th to 11th. This week I read 2 books, I watched 7 TV shows, I listened to 4 podcasts, and I listened to 1 book. I've also been pretty sick this week, so sorry in advance if I'm low energy. The first book I finished this week was The Princess Diarist by Carrie Fisher. The dumpster fire that was 2016 took her life, but I had heard that she was an amusing writer and decided to pick up her book on a whim. Although I enjoyed Star Wars as a kid, I've never been a giant fan of the franchise. I therefore didn't know a lot of the information that was in this book, and especially didn't know about the affair that she charmingly dubbed Kerrison. This was a quick read, and although I was literally reading her diary at times, I was more so struck by the eloquent way in which she was communicating than looking for salacious details. I wouldn't have the stones to share diary entries from when I was 19. Although if I wrote as well as she did at that age, perhaps that would be a different story. As it stands, I'm pretty sure I burned my own pages out of embarrassment. I enjoyed this book enough that I plan on reading her other books in the future. This week I also read Kindred, a graphic novel adaptation originally written by Olivia Butler, adapted by Damien Duffy, and illustrated by John Jennings. Butler has been on my mental TBR for a long time now, and upon seeing this adaptation I figured it was time to finally consume this sci-fi masterpiece, albeit in an altered state. The basic plot is that Dana, a woman of color in 1970s America, finds herself transported into the past, where she saves the life of a white child only to be confused as a slave. Upon being threatened, Dana is whisked back to her present, having been gone only a very short amount of time. She has no control over this travel, and she continues to go back in time when that same boy needs help. Years passed between the incidents for him, but it could be a matter of hours or days for Dana. It was gripping, brutal, and heart-wrenching. This week in Grey's Anatomy, I finished season 12 and now have to wait approximately until forever for the 13th season to go on Netflix because I'm pretty sure it's still happening on TV right now, but I refuse to look it up because spoilers. I'm kind of embarrassed that I watched 7 different TV shows this week. Somehow watching the same amount of episodes but for only one show is less guilt-inducing. Mainly, I just don't want to go into each show in detail, so I've condensed this part of the wrap-up into a little ditty. Grey's 12th season over, I finished a series of unfortunate events. Scrubs is easy to revisit, but that's just my 2 cents. Carl ate some pudding a few feet from The Walking Dead. That boy might cause a scandal or someday end up dead. Deep Space Nine perpetuates harassment in the workplace. Survivor has paranoid people become a disgrace. I swear I only watched a little, an episode here or there. 7 shows only seems excessive, please don't stare. Look away, look away. So that happened. One thing that I will expand on is that the 16th episode of Deep Space Nine was such raging bullshit that we had to turn it off halfway through. So stay clear of that one if you don't want to see a case of sexual harassment and employers basically telling Odo to man up. Disgusting, and shame on you, Deep Space Nine. This week I listened to episodes of Dear Hank and John, Lore, Welcome to Night Vale, and Revisionist History. I've talked about each of the first 3 in previous videos, so be sure to check the cards and link below for a playlist of previous episodes. As for Revisionist History, this was my first time listening to it. The tagline of this show is because sometimes the past deserves a second chance. This is a short series of 10 episodes where Malcolm Gladwell takes an event from the past and re-examines it. In the case of the first episode, I wasn't familiar with the initial story, but I was fascinated with the concept it brought up: moral licensing. If you haven't heard of this concept before, it's the theory that once you've done one moral thing correctly, you feel more justified in doing something morally questionable. For example, there are people that voted for Barack Obama to be president and therefore don't feel badly about still holding prejudice against people of color. Under this concept, they think that their support for one negates their abuse of others. I immediately thought that moral licensing could also be applied to dieting. I ate really healthy today, so I deserve this chocolate, right? I mean, I do, but in moderation. I'll link the episode below for anyone who's interested. This week I listened to Ghost Boy by Martin Pistorius. This book caught my eye a while ago, but because I handle so many books in a working day, I had yet to get to it. I remembered my interest when I attempted to come up with a book that featured a main character in a wheelchair for diversity bingo. Ghost Boy is a fictional account of a boy who fell ill as a child, went into a fugue state, and after several years his consciousness returned, but his ability to communicate that fact did not. This has been described as locked-in syndrome. For years he was trapped inside his body until a care worker had him tested to see if he could be taught to communicate in an alternative way. Camera died. This book follows Martin's life, detailing his transition from being thought of as not there to becoming a respected professional. I loved this book and was heartbroken to hear how Martin was treated as less than human by care workers and the public. The abuse some people inflict on others terrifies and disgusts me. I wholeheartedly encourage everyone to read this book. If you want a TLDR version, there's a link to his TED Talk down in the description below. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down in the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you next week. Bye! Although if I wrote as well as she did at that age, perhaps that would be a different story.